White roses bloom in the morning light, a symbol of hope shining so bright. We gather here to make a stand, with open hearts and holding hands. Circle of love will always grow, for justice, peace will let it show. Compassion flows like rivers wide, in this circle we all abide.
Hello everyone, wherever you're calling from and whatever time it is in your part of the world, welcome to the Green Tent Circle. I'm Ann Smith and I'm excited about our new illumination series that Leah's going to talk to us about. And then we're going to introduce our first illuminator, Dr. Lo Sprague. And she will be talking and telling us about her truth-telling in the Los Angeles area, and be open to questions afterwards and responses. And then I will talk about our next series. What will be happening with our next series. And then we'll all throw kisses and say goodbye. So we are a sacred circle. So I'm going to open it up with this sound, which reaches into our hearts and centers us as a sacred circle. So Leah, tell us about White Roses Circle. It's your passion, it's your initiative, and I can't thank you enough for starting this out.
Thank you, Anne. I can feel the energy of this just being a very profound moment. So I took some time and collected some swan feathers I live in a subdivision, and our lake in the subdivision is called Hope Lake. And so I went out and gathered some swan feathers for us today to kind of support and help us anchor the energy today. And I thank each and every one of you for showing up to help ground this intention and this love and this circle to help us navigate through some really intense times together. I'm hoping that it's energy that will go out far and wide and bring us all together around a unified vision. Welcome, everyone. Just some of my personal thoughts. We are at a pinnacle point in human history. A better word would be our story, our story, where the old unconscious patterns of domination, exploitation, fear, manipulation, and control are fighting. They're fighting to be relevant, and they're fighting to stay alive. And they're doing that in the face of explosive advances in technology that are allowing the human family, beyond borders, beyond labels, beyond division, the human family to be more connected and more creatively liberated than we've ever been before in our story. So the old methods of control, they're no longer working. The gatekeepers are dissolving. And it's easy now for any one of us to poke holes in the false narratives that are trying to form. And you can feel the tension in the air as that powers of control are becoming more and more desperate. And so amping up the force. Boy, are we in it right now is in that amplification of the force. But I think that nature is our greatest teacher. And nature teaches us that we cannot control natural change and natural evolution, but we can move and dance and cultivate together with it. We can cultivate it into its highest life-serving potential. And I think that many of us are actively involved in doing just that right now, cultivating the evolution and cultivating the changes into life-serving potential where it's meant to be. So keeping that in mind, I sat down with new technology last night and I asked AI, I asked AI to come into the circle with us. And I asked AI to help craft an intro to today, inviting us into this new series that will offer us a safe container to move through these intense times together. I'm going to share that now so we can move into that space of inviting in the new technology to help us cultivate with it into the highest life-serving potential. So thank you for being here for the very first gathering of the White Roses Circle series, a monthly event where we come together in community to listen, learn, connect, and rise together. We are aware that this is more than a speaker and panel series. This is a call to a homecoming to the heart. It's a circle of courage, and it's a circle of voices rising for compassion, rising for peace and healing for all beings and for our precious Mother Earth. Our inspiration for this series comes from the extraordinary bravery of Sophie Scholl and the White Rose Resistance. This was a group of young students in Nazi Germany who, in the face of human rights violations, chose to speak truth. These young visionaries wrote and distributed leaflets urging the German people to resist cruelty and injustice. They risked and ultimately gave their lives for what they knew was right in their hearts. So with their courage in mind, we asked ourselves last week in Circle when we came together a very profound question. What would Sophie Scholl do today with modern technology at her fingertips? When I think of her in her basement with typewriter, just typing away, creating, mass producing these leaflets, comparing that and contrasting that with where we are today with the technology at our fingertips, each one of us can be a Sophie Scholl putting out our leaflets from our heart. The White Rose Circle series is our beginning answer to that question. And we realize it's just a beginning. This White Roses Circle series is our beginning answer, and in their spirit, we gather to listen to wisdom keepers, human and earth rights defenders, peace leaders, and voices from the ground, connected in truth and care for one another and our planet. Those of us who are carrying the light of love in these uncertain times. So each circle will highlight new voices, new perspectives, new seeds of awakening, and importantly, new visions of hope for the future, so that together we can stay rooted in compassion, uplifted by clarity, and unified in purpose. We know that these are challenging times, but we also know that history has shown us the power of small groups of courageous, connected people. Grassroots storytelling, digital tools, and collective love. These are our modern day leaflets. And today we begin to pass them out. We're doing that today virtually, heart to heart, screen to screen, but heart to heart. And this is our intention, may we flood the seeds of wisdom and love through the web of life. So welcome to the beginning of something sacred and something very much alive and something that is building on the past, vitally alive in the present, and powerfully superseding an evolved future for all life. So together, let us plant the seeds of a new white rose movement and vision, a vision that's rooted in love, rooted in peace, rooted in compassion, rooted in abundance, rooted in creativity, rooted in vision, and rooted in connection. Let's melt the lines of division and let the circle, let the power of the circles that we're all so aware of, let the power of the circle bring in the new way forward. And there we are today at the beginning of that new way forward in this space. And thank you so much for showing up to help us begin to ground and root that intention. So we're very honored and happy to be able to kick off our series with Dr. Lo Sprague, president of the nonprofit interfaith organization, the Guibord Center in Los Angeles, California. I think the interfaith movement is just doing such a beautiful job creating a new, unified, diverse language where everybody is included. And so it's so wonderful to have her here today. Lo has been on the front lines there and has recently taken part in an amazing interfaith prayer vigil, which gave me so much hope and peace to see happening. And thank you, Lo, for being a part of that. Beautiful to seeing all of the denominations, all of the religions coming together in unity for a prayer vigil calling for justice, peace, and unity. Thank you, Lo, for the gift of your time and for kicking off the White Roses Circle series for us. We are looking forward to your wisdom, your perspective, and your guidance. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will give it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Leah, and thank you to everyone for being on this call today. I'm aware as I speak that I'm surrounded by good people who have spent their lives trying to bring about peace and healing and compassion. We are, as Leah has said, at a critical point in the history of this country and maybe the history of this planet. And I'm speaking to you from Los Angeles this morning, which is the tip of the spear right now in this administration's attempts to batter and bully its citizens into silence and compliance. As I'm the leadoff speaker, let me begin this presentation of the new White Rose Circle series by taking a few minutes here at the beginning to address three of the issues that we need to keep in mind as we, people of compassion and goodwill, begin to push back against the current government's policies of cruelty and injustice. The three things that I want us to look at as we begin are to get a sense of what's happening right now, what's the big picture, and then what's our goal, what is it that we're trying to do? And the third thing is, how do we get and keep ourselves grounded in this struggle? And here in Los Angeles, that's on the ground with ICE and our protests and violence. So first, let's begin by looking at a simplistic view of what's happening right now. What's the larger picture? In my understanding, I believe that we're living in the middle of a battle over our most basic human values by a steady and deliberate, well thought out effort to undermine the spiritual values of compassion and community with the material values of plantation capitalism, power, and greed. I define spiritual as a perspective that sees all of life and nature as purposely interconnected and inherently good. Bottom line, it's relational. We are all in this together. That view has been attacked over the past few decades in particular by materialism and greed that states whoever has the most is the best, and by what Reverend James Lawson called plantation capitalism. And we see the suffering of that everywhere, not only in the pain of those who are on the bottom, but also particularly on our young people who, being bereft of values of the earth, are left with false values and are carrying a profound depression. In terms of what's happened to our economics and addressing plantation capitalism, it's important to take a moment and think about what happened on a plantation economically. Plantation capitalism is a system by which the spoils of labor, the profits, go not to those who do the work because they're slaves and they don't have a voice, but to those who own the system, the owners, and today it's the shareholders. Owners get the profits, they get rich. Workers get their wages, period. They're not entitled to anything else. Plantation capitalism has become a key component in the economic model of the United States today. And what that means is, as shareholders become the new owners, they vote to suck the profits out of a company instead of sharing them with the workers who earned them. So we now have the super rich and profits going to investors, not to workers. Workers are stuck at the bottom. And more we're seeing a devaluing of workers around this country. All of this goes to say that the fight that is happening in the streets is a fight over spirituality versus materialism. Are we all connected? Do we all matter? Or are there two sets of people, the slaves, who include the despised, greedy workers, and the underclass who are considered undeserving, and the entitled, and those who are desperately trying to stay out of the category of the despised? Compassion says there's something known as the common good, that we owe something to one another, that we all do better when every part of us does better. We saw that growth with the rights gained by various minorities in the last 50 years. And what's happening right now is a reaction to that. Plantation capitalism has risen to say wealth is the power that belongs to the entitled, which are basically white men, and power is to be collected and amassed by the wealthy and to keep everyone else down. So we're looking at a struggle between compassion, kindness, generosity, and fairness, and maintaining the status quo of lifting up power and greed, resentments and grudges. This is really simplistic, I know, but it's helpful because there's a moral struggle going on about which values we're going to follow. And given that overview, given that, we have to ask ourselves in everything we do, what is it that we're trying to do? I'd say we're trying to find a way to confront and resist violence and to open the hearts of those who serve an ethic of cruelty and power with an experience of compassion and truth that awakens and supports those values that are dormant at everyone's inner core. If they're not active, they're still there. What that means practically is recognizing that beating up an ICE officer is probably not going to change him or open his heart. So how do we speak truth to power and open hearts? That's what we need to do, or at least part of what we need to do to change the system. The only way that we can hope to do that is by staying grounded and clear. And that gets us to the other two things we have to pay attention to: our own anger and our spiritual connectedness. Now, I'm assuming that folks on the call are considering how to be on the streets, how to push back. And you cannot be on the streets or push back without at some point finding yourself triggered by anger. It's just there. It is. So, a couple of tools. We need to recognize that anger is energy. So we can use it to ground ourselves. We can use it to evaluate, to strengthen ourselves, and to be careful not to get caught up in it, as exciting and energizing as it may be. When we get angry, when we feel that flash of injustice, we need to stop, think, breathe, and anchor ourselves. It's incredibly seductive. Don't get caught. When we get caught, that's when it turns destructive. And the second thing that we need to do, that I think everybody on this call is already doing and understands, is we have to anchor ourselves in some form of spiritual grounding. Meditate, write, pray, read, engage in ritual with your friends and colleagues, go to church, do your inner work, or this will toss you into the midst of a dangerous and deadly windstorm. Part of that's watching our attitude towards the other. It's normal and human to have feelings of hostility in this situation, but this is the most important time to stay grounded and do our work as much as we can. Leave the rest to God and stay off the internet as much as you can. So what does this all mean? It means we can't polarize. It can't be us versus them. And that's really hard. Spirituality means we're interconnected. It's about all of us, even those whose behavior we're opposing. Our fight has to be with behavior, not with people. It has to be about confronting the behaviors and the attitudes that apply to all of us, confronting the issues and attitudes of violence and divisiveness rather than the people themselves. It's hard to say this here in Los Angeles when we see ICE officers who are masked and armed, clubbing people, attacking them violently. But it's important to remember that they are human beings just as we are. And it is their behavior, the behavior that they already know is wrong, that is reprehensible. That's what we have to address while we reach out to hold on to their humanity. At the same time, this gets tough. We have to be willing to confront those same issues in ourselves. We have to look at our own righteousness and potential for violence. To summarize, we're in a spiritual struggle about how we're going to see and treat one another at a time when there is a concerted effort to instill violence around and between us. People of faith and goodwill are pushing back against the injustice of plantation capitalism and are refusing to turn us against one another. We are showing up and standing up together for the least amongst us. Our task is to stay grounded and to continue showing up for one another however we can right now. When we go into the streets, we have to take with us the spiritual values of love, truth, and compassion. We go into the streets together as people of faith and goodwill to be present with and for one another, and even for those who are seeking to do us harm. That's what spiritual solidarity looks like, to be with one another for goodness, kindness, and for justice. Los Angeles is the test case. It's the tipping point. We have been triggered in every way we can be. Hundreds of Marines who are taught to kill have been brought in to replace the National Guard who are taught to safely manage crowds. We have to deal with our fear. We have to deal with our anger, and we have to deal with the injustice of that. We have to breathe and think, how are we going to open hearts in a situation like this? How do we stay safe? How do we keep our people safe? And how do we not back down? We have not backed down. They have. The Marines are not on the frontiers here. ICE and others are now roughing up our politicians on camera, but the Marines are not. And our politicians are not backing down. As we continue to engage in this struggle for decency for all of our people here and across the country, we recognize that everything we do has to reflect our values. Our speech has to reflect our values. Our values are about our interconnectedness to one another, our willingness to literally stand shoulder to shoulder with one another, to sing together and pray together, and to listen to one another. This is a huge city. We have a long way to go in this effort. There are troublemakers who still abound, as has been pointed out in this city of millions of people and hundreds of blocks. The violence has been actually held to about 2 blocks, 2 city blocks. So we have to remember that, and we have to hold. There's also good news to encourage us. While people are offering violence filled with anger, we have to carry a spirituality to people who aren't showing any evidence of that. But the good news is this: science in the laboratories discovered a while ago, particularly with the work of Dr. Lisa Miller, that there's a specific part of the human brain that is hardwired in every single human being at birth that is specifically designed for spirituality. When that spiritual center is activated, we develop a resistance to the diseases of depression and despair. Spirituality and the brain show us that when we trigger the heart, it triggers that center. So when we create signs, because most of us are going to be doing signs, that's going to be the way that we're pushing back. We have to create signs that make people think. When I was a psychotherapist, one of my professors once said to me, when you're dealing with really, really tough, entrenched clients, first confuse them, and then they can think differently. And our signs have to do something that says to people, think differently. We have to be creative. And that's a kind of work that's really important. Saying to ICE, we know you love your families as much as we love our own, is coming at them with something they don't expect. And we have to be creative in the ways that we do this. And I'm asking all of us to put our hearts together. As we do that, we have to reach out with hearts, not with fists. The faith community in Los Angeles and our faith communities are incredibly important in this struggle. And in Los Angeles, our faith leaders are calling us together to be in the streets every week. Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, and many of our other faith organizations, from Sikh leader Valerie Kaur's Revolutionary Love Project to Hindu and Buddhist groups laying flowers in the space between the police and the military and the public, are all making efforts that are important as we do this. We have to find ways to deal with the violence. And the way to deal with the violence is first to deal with the violence in ourselves, to feel that impulse to get angry and to want to lash out. There are many, many signs that say FK Trump. There are many, many signs that voice violence. Many of us have to admit there are moments when we wonder what it would be like if we could just eliminate the opposition. But that's not how this works. If we're going to eliminate the opposition, we have to do it through love. We have to do it through kindness. So, two things that I want to say that are important as we move forward, two actions that are important, are to come together in solidarity, to reach out to the stranger and to reach out to the other wherever you are. Here in Los Angeles, that means showing up at a Sikh Gurdwara. It means showing up at a Jewish temple. It means showing up at a Buddhist gathering. It means being in places where we're supposed to turn against each other and standing together. It means when violence and tragedy strikes one of us, that we all come together to pray in solidarity. You can do that in any community. And it's one of the things that we have to build right now. Who are people pushing to be your natural enemy? And how do you reach out to them together? How do we get words back into the vocabulary, like neighbor, and how we treat one another? How do we get words like compassion back into the conversation? How can we come together in prayer? Those prayers can be moments of silence together. They can be holding hands together. But we have to reach out to one another. And we have to find ways to respond to violence with understanding of what's created it, with compassion for the suffering and the pain and the outrage that's there. We have to stand with that suffering, but we have to stand with it with compassion and with solidarity and a willing to be there for as long as it takes to get through it. Here in California, as all of you know, we had disastrous fires, and those fires took out at least a dozen different houses of worship. And I have to tell you that in less than a week after those fires, those different faith communities were housed in other faith communities. People in this city reached out. When people suffered, there were those organizers who brought relief, who brought food, who brought connections, who were willing to take care of pets, who did the things that needed to be done. In some ways right now, we have to treat every town and every city like a small town. We have to share our values. And the other crucial thing that we have to do right now is to not polarize. There are good people in all parties and on all sides of this. And we have to be able to reach out and find their humanity. We have to reach out and respect their humanity, not through grievance, but through compassion. And that's a different kind of work than we're used to doing. It's really hard for us to go to the other side and to sit them down and say, please tell me about your family. Tell me about what keeps you up at night. And to listen, not to talk them out of it, but to listen and to find those places where we connect, where we unite. We have to be a nation together. We have to look at the losses that we're all facing. One of the mistakes that those of us in California have made, I believe, is in looking at those in the South, those who've been raised with the end of the Civil War, meaning the loss of their way of life, and who've had to rethink and lose so much that they believed was true. We have to look at that when we say that the values of decency and sharing of power are important. I'm a person of privilege. I'm a white woman who's had a great education and every advantage. And I have to tell you, as much as I recognize it's important for me to give up some of that privilege, it's hard. A number of years ago, not long after the murder of George Floyd, I found myself going into the local bank on a Friday. I'd been in the bank recently to help solve some problems in my mother-in-law's finances. So the owner of the bank knew me. And when I walked in on that Friday afternoon, it was about 2 in the afternoon, I walked in and the bank was packed. Every seat was taken. And as I stood there for a moment, just looking around, the owner of the bank was in his office and he saw me. There was someone in his office and he got up and he went to the door and he signaled for me to come. And I started to feel relief and to take a couple of steps. And as I did, I stopped and I looked around and I looked at the bus stop outside of the door to the bank and the people there. And I walked over to him and I said very quietly, "Thanks. I'll wait my turn," and went and stood at the end of the line. That was hard. I love that privilege, but it's not right. It's not right. And so we have to weigh the comfort that we give up, the privilege that we give up for something that feels even better, which is the well-being of all of us. So I'm asking for us to have compassion for the people that we say easily don't deserve it. And that's all of us. We're all going through a time of upheaval, a time that's scary, a time that threatens the things that we value. We're also watching something else happen that we need to recognize. What we're watching happen is, in some ways, practically unbelievable. We're looking at a time when the ultra wealthy are feeling fiscally insecure, when it's not enough to be a millionaire, when a millionaire is at the bottom of the rung right now, because they don't even count people who are below that. When you can't feel secure as a millionaire, when you have to be a billionaire or a zillionaire, what that tells us is the poverty, the emotional, spiritual poverty that's running rampant through our system today. There's an old saying that you can't get enough of what won't fill the hole in your soul. Money won't fill the hole in your soul. Only kindness will. Only compassion will. And so the other thing I want to say right now to all of us is that we have what's missing. We have what people don't realize they're needing, which is compassion, which is the heart. And my animals have to get into it too as I speak. That's precious. And let us take time together in the green tent, in our gatherings, in prayer and in thought, to find ways to extend that to those who openly disdain it and desperately need it. That's going to take our creativity. So I'm glad that we've got really creative people out here who can do this. Let me stop talking for a minute and let me go to all of you and open this up to questions and comments.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Lo. Incredibly thank you for starting this out with the profound words, the depth of the meaning of these words, and your experience in Los Angeles and with the Guibord Center. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Lo.
Definitely.
Those words speak right to my heart, and they remind me of the basis of my activism since the early 1980s, probably. And I've attended many, many big actions, and I've helped organize many of them, including in the city of Los Angeles, my hometown, and in San Francisco, and in Florida, and in New York. And in every single one of these larger actions that we're all speaking up to the injustices of the day, I myself was part of an affinity group where we would assign roles for people, not only the risks we were willing to take, but with the other affinity groups, we would make sure that there are peacekeepers scattered throughout the whole crowd to de-escalate people, to help de-escalate people. And also we would offer trainings in nonviolent resistance, which is so helpful and so important because you practice role play with police or military and not othering them. And it's really hard. It's really hard if you go on the front lines without that kind of foundation and nonviolent resistance. And, you know, this came out of the civil rights movement. They started creating affinities then. Then Vietnam wasn't so good, wasn't as much of that nonviolent resistance training. But since then, there are groups probably in every city that can help with that. And I think if we start inviting people that have never protested before to accompany us, to at least be a resource of those teachings for them, if not help them hook into a group. I was in a women's circle last night where I thought not everybody was a Democrat or an independent, that there might be some Trump people there. The two women that I thought might have been Trump people came to me and said they've been awakened. And one of them went to her first protest in Olympia last week. And she said, I'm going to every single one now, and asked me to go with her. So something is changing. You know, I said, the police are not our enemy. I just keep saying that to everybody. And I loved it when we put flowers in the guns on the National Guard sometime in the 70s or 80s. Yes. So thank you for that. I think that I hear in the essence of what you're saying is we need to practice nonviolence, starting with ourselves, nonviolent communication, starting with ourselves. And that will help us not other those that are representing the other side. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would strongly recommend the work of Reverend James Lawson. For those of you who don't know, Reverend Lawson was the strategist for Martin Luther King, and he is the one who did the strategies of the original sit-ins at counters, and he's the one who's done the work with all the labor unions here in Los Angeles. His writings are excellent. His work is excellent.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, though, to serve as referrals. And I want to recommend things like Valerie Carr, Kaur, is a Sikh, and her program on revolutionary love. The Revolutionary Love Project is an important one. There are all kinds of programs that are out there, and they're good for us to share. They're important for us to share. I also want to say that it's important, as we get into specifics, it's important for us to bring our symbols of our groups, symbols of our faith communities into these rallies because they're resources, they're places for people to go. And Angela, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it is very profound what you shared with us. I just have some views that I would like to share with you as well. First, when you talk about plantation capitalism, it has a big name. It's colonialism. And we have been dealing with that for hundreds of years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's all around the world. It's not. And it seems that the first time United States is feeling what it is to be held in a, let's put it this way, in a colonial way of dealing with a country where people is really those who have and those who have not. This is the bottom line. So I think nonviolence, we had Gandhi, what he did was impressive. But it's not easy because when you talk about hunger, poverty, when people are down to the bare nothingness, there is anger. And dealing with that is helping them to be treated as human beings, first of all. So when you talk to me about IC and all those Republicans, they have not gotten into this bottom. They are just afraid to lose what they have because they think that they cannot distribute it, that as resources are in a small amount, they want their big share. But how I think we need to learn in the whole world, how can we help to have a really sharing society, sharing in terms of resources, of love, of caring. And I think this is really the bottom problem. Yes, we do have here in Brazil people who thinks are the far right and are behaving in a very bad way and really are people well off. That's the truth. So for us, maybe that has been colonialized for so long, it's more complicated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angela. I'm speaking this morning. I was speaking this morning particularly to the United States.
Yeah, I know.
That's where it's boiling up right now. And we're really in a battle here that if we don't turn it back, will magnify suffering all over the globe. We'll end up taking all of the reins off and really destroying the entire planet, which is, by the way, the intention of white Christian nationalists.
Yeah.
White Christian nationalism has as its goal the destruction of the earth, because that's required in their mythology for Jesus to return. So we need to be aware of that. And they're siding with Israel out of white Christian nationalism because they need a certain number of because they need Israel intact and a certain number of Jews to join with Jesus in order for the prophecy to be fulfilled. And most Christians around the world repudiate white Christian nationalism, but it is in the halls of power right now. So this pushback is a global one, because these are the forces that are intending to destroy the planet. They want to take all the oil. That's why you're hearing things around Trump about drill, baby, drill, and all of that. It's really a hope to kind of, it is a hope. Let me just stop right there. Let me not get into my anger. It's a hope to really take everything down, because then the select will get to go off and be be happy ever after. Yeah, exactly. Somehow it never happens that way.
I think Carl was next, and then Marilyn.
Yeah, Carl, please.
Thank you, friends. Thank you, Dr. Lowe and the White Roses Circle. Yeah, I raise my hand now because I'm traveling. I'm in the home base. I'm in Washington, D.C. Was attending a conference that had a number of the themes. It was focused on one of the divisions in this country, which is racism, but the title of the conference was Advancing Together, which, Holly mentioned, stop the othering. We have to move together as a human family. And there were people from all over the country. One of my former coworkers who is now working for one of the government entities that was shut down, literally, they got a day or two notice before they had to, before the office was shut down. That reality was there. But to see this diverse group of people from all over the country who want to do and are ready to do the things that you were talking about, Dr. Lowe, and the White Roses Circle is certainly inspiring. And as you said, people who never have done this before are doing it now. So that shows the truth of the reality of us realizing that we do have strength to make change.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Carl. It's really important to get those images out there. I mean, I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm not a big champion of it, but I'm on it a lot trying to get imagery out there, trying to get the images of us standing together, of diversity being together.
Marlene and I live in a rural area, Nevada City and Grass Valley, we're kind of sister cities. And I have stood on the street corner many, many, many years with a handful on each corner, shall we say. In April, I went down and there were 2,000 people on those same corners, even across the highway. And then the last one in April, 4,000 people. Now, what I found, a couple of things was it was almost a celebration. We were there and so thrilled to be there. Then my question, and I'll leave this with you because I have another point. My question is it for us that we're out there on the corner? Does it make any difference? And that's a big question. I don't know who it's impacting. It's certainly impacting us. The second thing I wanted to mention was, and I have mentioned this before, this idea of a force field of prayer. If we choose to come together at 1 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, and know there are others with us in our own personal prayer, I just feel there's an inordinate quiet strength in that. So I wanted to bring that up again, a force field of prayer. Thank you.
I think in terms of the numbers on the corner, it's both for you, but it also ripples out across the world. I mean, we are profoundly interconnected. Energetically, we are connected. There is a quote, every time 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I'm there also. So yes, it does matter. Force field of prayer. I want to say that in Los Angeles, Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, which is one of our powerful interfaith groups, has called for every Tuesday at, I think it's noon, to meet in the streets to pray. There are other groups on Wednesday nights. So all over, there are prayer groups. Yes, they help.
I was thinking of this force field, and what Lo just said answered it, that it grounds it. It has to be grounded. It has to be grounded with people connecting with one another and not just in a mental realm. And so the idea of praying in the midst of an event or a gathering or in any way we connect. The image of fundamentalist Christians sitting around holding hands at a table doesn't really appeal to me, but but some heart to heart kind of a thing. Earlier in a conversation, I was reminded when somebody was talking about, it was you, Lo, when you were talking about that whole Zionist Armageddon Christian view. NPR did a special on that in 1999, and I just happened to be working on a book and I took tons of notes. And if anybody wants that, I can easily find it because I know where it is because I put it in the root of all evil. and and can send that to you, the whole history of the whole beliefs. There's even more than you said, Lo. It goes back even further to this book of Jeremiah, etc. You're familiar with that, right? It's like crazy, dangerous stuff. But I think it's important to know our triggers. You reminded me of an event in, I think it's called Elysian Park in Los Angeles around 1967, early 1968, when I was with hippie friends and there was a love festival with music and people on blankets coming in. Well, that's also the site, or at least it was then, of a police academy. So here they all came walking or marching in unison, and then all of a sudden, one person on a blanket started to run, probably had pot, and they all broke loose and started banging one another on heads. Okay, my immediate response before thinking was to jump in. I was going to attack a police to protect people. And my hippie friends grabbed me back. So I think it's important to know our weak points, our trigger points, and to look so that we really can be in a place where we're not adding to the main opposition, which is going right now, which is against the other. It always has been prejudice against the other.
Yep. That's part of why our signs are so important, that our signs have to reach the other. We love our families as much as we know you love yours. We have to communicate that which holds us together as we do this.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be back. Sorry, I missed a few weeks. Thank you so much, Dr. Lowe. Thank you, everyone. That really broke my heart open again. I'm numb a lot lately with everything going on. It just reminded me of a few things when you were talking with Sharon. You talked about being grounded, and I'm taking a couple of classes. One is the Midnight Course with Dr. Larry Ward and Peggy Ward at the Lotus Institute, and they talk about before you can be grounded, you have to be resourced. So like they encourage us to think like your cat. Like for me, it would be my cat, like something that softens me, like to bring me, you know what I mean? Because it's not easy to just get grounded. And then another thing is that Meg Wheatley talks about taking your seat and like noticing and sitting, doing that open eye meditation to notice what triggers you. So I try to do that. I'm not that great at it, but I try to do it when I can. It's supposed to be every day. And then finally, a story about the police. I was at an animal rights, I think it was at NYU, an animal rights conference, and someone was talking, one of the speakers on the panel was talking about being, I think it was a Carlisle group thing. And one of the police came up to her and said, it was at nighttime. She said, you're doing God's work here. He's like, my mother's very sick and I have to take this job as a second job to help support my mother. But I just want you to know you're doing God's work here. That's what the police officer came up and said to her. So you just never, ever know. And so I just wanted to say that. So thank you all so much. This is so moving and blessed to be with you.
Well, this has been an incredibly, just an incredible conversation and an incredible beginning of the White Roses Circle. That I thank all of you who have attended, all of you who have spoken, and Lo for starting this off with such a wealth of information, heart information, and Leah for saying, let's do this, and the importance for all of us to do this. The next one will be hearing Latina voices from around our country, the United States.
Great.
Those who are our essential workers, who are being treated as criminals a lot of times and rounded up, families separated, children separated, put into these awful camps. So we will hear their voices. And I want to say two things. I liked, Sharon, that you had a resource from 1999. Send it to Leah because we will put this on our White Roses Circle page and any other resources that we have. Also send to me any ideas that you would like to have for our illumination series on this. Well, who are the voices that we need to hear? What is the truth that needs to get out there? What is the help that we all need to have that we can be our very, very best selves in these very critical times? So thank you again. And it has been recorded, and Leah, she said she will make it into a video that we can share with our friends. It could be actually a wonderful thing to share in your circle wherever you are and have discussion afterwards. And again, after you've had discussion and you have ideas from your local circles or your local organization or your national organization, please send them to me or send them to us. You can send them through info@greententcircle.com, and Leo will pick those up and we'll make sure that we can weave this into the richness of what we are all about.
Whispers of change right on the breeze. A better world starts with small seeds. Petals of kindness fall like rain. Together we'll ease the world's pain. Circle of love will always grow, always grow. For justice, peace, we'll let it show. Compassion flows like rivers wide. In this circle we all abide. Let's paint the world with colors true, in every shade and every hue. We are the voices, hearts combined, one step at a time. Love's path we'll find. Circle of love will always grow, always grow. For justice, peace, we'll let it show, we'll let it show. Compassion flows like rivers wide. In this circle we all abide.